There's a moment explaining that stops working. You say more. You try to be clearer. But they do not slow down. They cut across your sentence. They grab one word you said and bend the whole thing around it. Now you are no longer talking. You are chasing. Chasing the right wording. Chasing the right tone. Chasing the version of you they refuse to see. And somehow, the more you explain, the less control you have. You know this moment. You are standing there, still trying to keep it calm. Maybe it is at work. Maybe it is at the table. Maybe it is one of those conversations that was normal for the first minute, then suddenly turns. They interrupt you once. You let it pass. They twist your point. You try to correct it. They talk over that too. Now your chest tightens. Your voice gets faster. Now you start adding extra words you did not even plan to say. Not because you are lying, because you can feel the room slipping, because being misunderstood starts to feel unbearable. So you lean in even harder. No, that's not what I meant. Let me explain. Hold on, you're missing my point. But they are not missing it. That is the part people miss. They are not lost. They are in control. And the moment they stop trying to understand you and start trying to control the conversation, every extra sentence costs you. Because now they get more chances to interrupt, more chances to reframe you, more chances to keep you emotionally engaged. You think you are fixing the conversation. You are feeding it. And that is the moment you should stop explaining. And this is where you first lose it. Not when they disagree. Not when they get loud. Either when you decide one more explanation will fix it. You say something simple. Maybe in a meeting. Maybe in your own kitchen. Maybe on the phone with someone already coming in hot. They cut in halfway through. You pause. Then you try to clean it up. No, that's not what I meant. You say it calmly, still measured, still trying to be fair, but they jump in again. They grab one piece of your sentence and ignore the rest. Now you feel that first shift. Your body knows before your mind does. Your jaw gets tight. Your breathing changes. Your words start coming faster. And this is the mistake. You think clarity will calm them down. So you give more context, more detail, more proof. You start explaining your intention, your tone, your reason, your history. But the second you do that, the frame changes. You are no longer making a point. You are defending your right to have one. They speak once, you carry the rest, and they can feel that. Because now they are not responding to your point. They are managing your reaction. That is why they keep cutting in. That is why they do not slow down. That is why your extra words do nothing. This is not a misunderstanding anymore. It is a control moment. The Stoic shift starts small. You notice the line, the first interruption, the first twist, the first time your explanation gets used against you. And instead of adding 3 more sentences, you stop. Not to surrender, to see clearly. Because once you can see this is no longer a real exchange, you stop feeding it. And this is why it keeps happening. Because it is almost never just one conversation. It shows up again with the same pressure, just a different face. At first you think, that was a weird moment. Maybe they were stressed. Maybe the timing was bad. Maybe next time they will listen. Then the next time comes. You start speaking. They jump in early again. You answer a message. They twist one line again. You try to clarify a boundary. They act confused again, like your first answer was too complicated to understand. Same pattern. Different room. Different day. Same trap. And every time, you do the same thing. You explain harder. You slow your voice down. You add more detail. You try to sound reasonable enough to finally end the tension. But that is exactly what teaches the pattern to repeat. Because they learned something valuable. Not about your point, about your access. They learn that pressure opens you up. They learn that interruption makes you explain more. They learn that if they keep resisting your words, you will keep working to earn a fair hearing. That is where the loss hides. It does not just waste one conversation, it trains the next one. Now they already know they do not need to understand you to keep you engaged. They just need to keep you reacting. And once someone learns that, they stop listening for meaning. They start listening for leverage. This is where most people break. They think repetition means they have not explained it well enough yet. So they come back clearer, calmer, longer. But repetition was never proof of confusion. A lot of the time, it is proof that the first push worked. The Stoic move here is hard because it feels incomplete. You stop treating repeated twisting like a communication problem. You start reading it as a pattern. And patterns do not end because you explain better. They end when access gets smaller. This is the part people around you start reading. Not your logic, your position. Because once the conversation turns and you keep explaining anyway, the room stops hearing strength. It starts hearing chase. You have seen this happen. A group goes quiet. Someone twists what you said. You step in fast to fix it. Then they cut across that too. Now nobody is even following the original point anymore. They are watching the exchange, watching who holds the pace, watching who gets interrupted and still keeps trying. That lands hard, because social respect is not only built from being right, it is built from how hard someone has to push before you leave your center. And when you keep explaining past the line, people notice something subtle. You are no longer choosing your words. You are trying to rescue your image. The room feels that immediately. Even the people who agree with you start pulling back a little. Not because they think you are wrong, because the energy changed. Because now it looks like the other person can move you, can speed you up, can drag you into defense. That is where position slips, and it happens in tiny ways. Someone smirks, someone looks down, someone stops backing you up. Nobody says it out loud, but the exchange has already told them who is holding frame and who is fighting to get it back. That is the social cost of over-explaining. You do not just lose the other person, you lose the room. The Stoic shift here is brutal because it asks for restraint, right when your ego wants repair. You stop performing understanding for spectators. You stop trying to win the whole room back with more words. You let one clean sentence stand, or you let silence stand. Because the second you stop chasing how you look, you stop looking easy to control. But this is where it gets expensive, because now it is not just a bad conversation. Now there is something at stake. Your position, your authority, your ability to leave the moment intact. Maybe it happens in front of your boss. Maybe it is family, and everybody is already choosing sides with their eyes. Maybe it is a relationship, and you can feel the whole argument narrowing down into one ugly question. Can they keep pulling you until you break your own shape? That pressure changes you fast. You stop speaking to express something true. You start speaking to prevent damage, to stop them from painting you the wrong way, to stop the room from turning. Days to stop the silence from making you look guilty. So you rush. You explain the context, then the tone, then what you really meant, then what happened before that. Now you are carrying the whole exchange on your back, and they barely have to do anything. One interruption, one sarcastic line, one fake misunderstanding. That is enough to make you work for another 2 minutes. That is the trap. The pressure makes explanation feel necessary. But under pressure, extra words are not protecting your position. They are draining it, because the more you scramble to keep control, the more obvious it becomes that control has already left your hands. This is where most people stay too long, right past the line, right into the part where they start saying things they would never have said if they were still centered. The Stoic move is not dramatic. It is clean. You notice the conversation is no longer moving toward the truth, only toward escalation. And instead of donating more language to the fire, you reduce access. You stop answering every twist. You stop rescuing every distortion. And if the frame is gone, you leave before your calm goes with it. And this is where the damage turns inward, because after a while, it is not even about them anymore. It is about what explaining does to you. You walk away from the conversation, but it does not leave with you. It stays in your body. You replay the lines, the interruption, the tone, the part where you heard yourself talking too much and still could not stop. That part hurts, not because they misunderstood you, because you felt yourself abandoning your own center in real time. You felt the shift. Anja, you knew the conversation was no longer clean. You knew they were not trying to understand. And still, you stayed in there trying to earn something they were never going to give honestly. That is the deeper loss. Self-trust starts thinning out, because now your mind has two battles: what they did, and what you let yourself keep doing after you already saw the trap. That is why these moments feel so heavy later. It is not just frustration, it is self-betrayal, a quiet kind, the kind where you hear yourself explaining the obvious, proving what should not need proof, trying to look fair to someone being unfair on purpose. And afterward, you feel drained in a very specific way, not loud, just hollow, like your energy got spent in a place that could never pay it back. This is the part people miss. Over-explaining does not just cost a position outside, it weakens your authority inside. The Stoic shift begins here. You stop asking, "How do I make them get it?" You start asking, "At what point did I stop protecting my peace?" Because once you answer that honestly, walking away stops feeling rude. It starts feeling clean. And this is where your identity has to change. Because as long as you keep seeing yourself as the person who must be understood, they can keep pulling you back in. That is the old version, the one who hears the distortion and feels immediate pressure to correct it. The one who thinks, "Hold on, I just need to say this one part better." The one who stays 5 minutes past the moment where respect had already left the room. But the shift starts when you stop measuring control by how well you explained yourself, and start measuring it by how little access they have to your center. That changes everything. Now the interruption lands differently. Now the twisting does not automatically get a reply. Now the silence after their jab does not feel like defeat. It feels like a choice. You see the trap earlier. You feel your body wanting to rush in. Your chest tightens. Your mind loads up 3 new sentences, and this time you do not follow it. That pause is the identity shift, because the old you thought power meant finishing the argument. The stronger you start seeing power as staying unhooked, not cold, not passive, just no longer available for conversations built on distortion. This is where calm becomes visible. You give one clean line, or none. You do not chase accuracy inside someone else's bad faith frame. You do not keep offering your energy to prove you are reasonable. You let them keep their noise. You keep your position. Because once you stop needing the other person to validate your meaning, You stop being easy to control. So what do you actually do in the moment? You get simpler. That is the correction. Not smarter, not louder, simpler. They interrupt. You stop. You look at them, then you give one line. I said what I meant. Or, I'm not going to keep explaining this. Or, if the frame is already dirty, this conversation isn't going anywhere. And then you let it sit. That silence matters. Because for the first time, you are not rushing in to save the room. You are not repairing their distortion. You are not volunteering more language for them to grab and twist. You are removing fuel. That is what walking away really is. And not a dramatic exit, not a performance, just refusal. Refusal to stay inside a conversation that only works if you keep defending yourself. Sometimes you stay physically and just stop feeding it. Sometimes you end the call. Sometimes you leave the table. Sometimes you send no second paragraph. Different setting, same principle. Once the conversation stops being about truth and starts being about control, your job is no longer to explain better. Your job is to reduce access. This is the visible correction. Noticing the shift faster, speaking less, ending sooner, leaving before your voice gets thin, before your pace gets frantic, before you start trying to rescue how they see you, because that is how calm power looks in real life. You do not win by making them understand. You win by not staying available for a bad faith exchange. And that is the moment you stop losing control. Some people do not want clarity. They want access. Access to your reaction. Access to your energy. Access to the version of you that starts explaining the second they distort the room. Do not give them that. Not every conversation deserves more of you. And the moment understanding leaves, you should too. Because calm power is not saying the perfect final sentence. It is knowing when to stop speaking before the conversation starts, using you. You do not protect your control by explaining harder. You protect it by leaving the trap unopened.